Coming up on this week's episode of TechSNAP. A new satellite ISP has got permission to serve residents in the U.S. Are their low-latency broadband claims too good to be true? We discuss. And the UK government is now claiming that using the dark web is a potential sign of terrorism. Tor users out there, watch out. And we take a deep dive with Krebs on security into the wild world of robocalling. Plus, Dan's got a great update on his Let's Encrypt setup. We've got your fantastic feedback, a rockin' roundup, and so much more on this week's episode of TechSNAP. Welcome to TechSNAP, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly systems, network, and administration podcast. This episode was streamed in front of a live IRC audience and is brought to you by our three magnificent sponsors, DigitalOcean, Ting, and IX Systems. My name is Wes, and joining me for episode 326 of the TechSNAP program is our host, Dan. Welcome to the show, Mr. Dan.
Hello, everybody.
Hey,
we're
look
here.
At that.
Yay.
Woo! You've got your awesome Tetris lamp in the background with your beautiful rack.
There it is.
Everything looks beautiful. How are you today?
It's great. I'm good. How are you?
Oh, doing splendidly. It's a beautiful day here in the Pacific Northwest. Been hanging out with the one and only Chris Fisher of Jupiter Broadcasting. Next week, we're going to have a live, in-person barbecue. But actually, that's happening today. What am I talking about?
Today, yes.
Yeah, today. Exactly today.
You said Pacific Northwest, right?
I did.
But it's really in the northeast of the Pacific.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
Because I used to live in the southwest of the Pacific.
You're talking about New Zealand here.
I always found it weird. Why do they call it the Pacific North? Because it's the Pacific Coast
Pacific
Northwest.
Yeah, right. I mean, you could have just Northwest where you're not by this Pacific. That's boring.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. Well, boy, we've got a good show today. I guess we should just get started unless you have anything you want to interlude with. I like that you're looking around. That's amazing.
Well,
you just have enough toys around the room that you can look around and find things that you want to talk about. It's perfect.
I've got this shelf that I was going to sell, but now I think I'm going to keep it because it's ventilated. And I'm going to move some of the stuff around on there, and I've assigned that task, but I don't know when it's going to get done. But yeah, just be glad. It may be a wide-angle camera, but just be glad it's up above, because this is a mess.
Oh, don't worry.
It's a wreck everywhere.
We definitely are.
Oh, yes.
Oh, interesting. Okay, RIPE.
Yeah. And on the back.
Oh, IPv4 CIDR chart. Look at that. Oh, that's handy. What's on the other side? I missed that.
On the other side is the same thing for IPv6.
Oh, that's all. Where did you get that?
BSD can. So it's a CIDR chart for both groups, IPv6 and IP4. Max was giving these out. We know him as Max. He works for RIPE. RIPE? Does he work for RIPE or does he work? Yes, he works for RIPE. He's the guy that supplied me with that little white box behind my finger here. This is the RIPE Atlas probe. It phones home and it contacts the box to do various DNS tests. How long does it take to resolve this? What does this resolve to? Stuff like that. And that comes from...
Right, that's part of their Atlas program, I believe it's called. Something like that, right?
It's pretty cool. Yep.
I think, and then...
helps them figure out how latent things are.
That's awesome. Oh, yeah, here's their website right there.
And you can probably find my probe in there somewhere, but let's not.
They have almost 10,000 probes connected. That's awesome.
Yep.
With 15,000 measurements.
And they give them away free, and you just plop them in, and they do stuff.
Sits on your network, and pings home and pings other things, and
and you accumulate credits for running one.
Oh.
And you can use the credits to run your own tests.
That's okay. That's really, and then so then you get access to this distributed network of probes that you can suddenly go like, hey, oh man, that's fascinating. That seems like a pretty good arrangement.
I think, either 1 million or 250,000 credits. I can't remember. Like, it's been ages since I checked.
So you're not using them regularly?
No, I'm not using it. I'm just have it plugged in there. I think I've had it for 3 years now.
Awesome.
And it sends you a monthly status, which includes percentage uptime.
Okay, that's handy too. Well, then you can get some reports, and then you send an invoice to your ISP about your downtime that's above SLA.
It's only been 1 or 2 months out of all that time with 100%.
Yeah, those are the good ones.
99 point something, a lot.
Oh, I would like to see that. That's fascinating data.
I should take that and graph it.
You really should. I would like to see that. All right, now you've got homework.
Okay. Hey, Alexa, remind me to do a graph of the Atlas Ripe probe.
You tried. All right, done. Great. With that, I guess we can move right on into the start of the TechSNAP program. First up today, I mean, we're talking here about networks, and maybe we'll have a new way to start getting internet service? I don't know.
Yes. What do people do out in the middle of nowhere, literally, not exaggerating, hundreds of miles from broadband? There are many people like that. And I've heard it mostly, say, in the Northwest, the Midwest, and sometimes the south of the U.S., and I mean mid-south. They have no broadband. They often use satellite, but usually they use stationary satellites, and we'll talk about what that is later. And generally, I've heard that people use them satellite for a downlink and DSL or something for upload. You can't upload very fast, but with a satellite, you can download quickly. But the problem with that is, geocentric satellites are 30,000 kilometers away? No, 35,000 kilometers away. 35,400 to be specific. And that's a big ping time. That's half a second or more of latency.
No, thank you.
You can't game over that. So there's this new company that's doing great things. A company seeking to offer low latency broadband from satellites received a key approval from the FCC. Today's satellite ISPs have average latencies of 600 milliseconds or more. That's average, with satellites orbiting the Earth at about 35,400 kilometers. Now, just a brief aside, why are they so far away? Well, if you're just to put something in orbit, it would start falling. So what do you do to stop it from falling? You propel it forward. And what you try when something is in orbit, it's basically falling at the same rate that it's moving forward.
Exactly.
So as it's falling, it's staying the same distance away from the Earth at all times. So in order to become geocentric, you have to be so far out that the pull is so low that your rotation exactly matches the Earth as it spins around. So because it's so far out, it's actually spinning around fairly quickly, but it's always staying above the same point of the Earth. And that means, am I correct in that most geocentric satellites are around the pole? They can be around anywhere, but they're generally around the equator, I didn't mean the pole, but they're generally around the equator or somewhere so that they always stay the same place. Someone's going to write in and correct me. So, in contrast, OneWeb, this is the company, OneWeb satellites would orbit at about altitudes of 1,200 kilometers. Someone look up and find out where the ISS is, please. I'm sure it's way under 1,200. I think it's more like 300.
249 miles.
You knew that?
I just Googled it. I'm just quick like that.
What's that in kilometers, though?
Let's see.
So the company says internet access would have latencies of around 30 milliseconds, which gets respectable.
It's about 400 kilometers.
Yeah, so these are about 3 times as high as a space station. So speeds would be around 50 megabits per second. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's totally tolerable.
50 meg and 30 milliseconds, you're not going to win any games on it possibly, but you can live with that. OneWeb says it will start launching production satellites in early 2018. Now, the one thing that is interesting is the proposed network would have 720 low Earth satellites using the 20 to 30 gigahertz and 11 to 11/14 gigahertz frequency range. It would be able to provide ubiquitous, low-latency broadband connectivity across the United States, including some of the most remote areas in places like Alaska, where broadband access has not been possible before. So basically, satellite. Just like a satellite phone or like satellite TV. You've seen satellite dishes on houses, outside houses.
Houses, businesses, etc.
And they're sort of aimed up at about 45 degrees or so.
Mm-hmm.
That's because these geocentric satellites are all out by the equator.
Right. So that angle then will depend on your angle on the Earth, right? Because they'll all change as they're trying to point. There's a lot of fun geometry going on here.
Yeah. And as someone points out, satellite ISPs are deemed to be one of the better broadband schemes. So I imagine that the existing satellite services are considered broadband, but
there's a lower end of broadband.
I was not interested.
It's the thing you do because you have no better choice, right? I think in many cases
you can't do anything else. Yeah. So with 720, that's way more than, say, GPS. But GPS are also geocentric. No, they're not. That's got me. I don't think GPS satellites are geostationary either. I said geocentric. So, OneWeb called yesterday's FCC vote. Yeah, they are not. Okay, good. So back here, missed it. OneWeb isn't the only company seeking to build low Earth satellite broadband network. So is SpaceX.
Yeah,
they have similar plans, but I didn't read to find out where that was coming from. So the FCC received comments from other satellite operators questioning some aspects of the OneWeb application. While approving OneWeb's application, the FCC had imposed conditions to ensure, quote, the satellite constellation does not cause interference to other users of the same spectrum and will operate in a way that manages the risk of collisions. The FCC's satellite engineering experts are reviewing similar applications from other companies. This sounds pretty cool. I don't know.
Yes, it does.
I don't know if it would be useful to you and me, but for a lot of people that are using satellite service now, they'll be jumping on this as soon as they can. Now, I'm going to guess that they're going to use something similar in scope to what cell sites do, where you jump from one.
You'll basically end up being transferred between satellites as they range over, and your position changes as well.
And you'll always have to have different satellites.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have to have multiple satellites covering you. And that is essentially how GPS works, is you're not getting a signal from one satellite. You got to get a signal from 4 satellites to fix your position and altitude. And I remember reading this, and it was so fascinating in this magazine when I was in Vancouver in 95. Don't ask me how I remember that exact thing.
But know.
It was 95 in Vancouver, probably May. And I was reading this article about how basically your GPS unit gets a signal, and it has a timestamp on it. And it also has a clock within it. And it knows the difference between the time clock in it and the time signal it received represents the distance that the satellite is away from you. So that enables you to draw a sphere around the satellite, because you know that that signal travels a set distance and a set time, so you know how far you are from that satellite. So that's just a sphere. And then you get another signal from another satellite, you define the other sphere. And once you define 3 spheres, they will intersect, I believe, at a number of points. But you can discard some of those points
because you're probably not in space.
Yeah. And they're too far below you. But if you get a signal from a 4 satellite, 4 satellites can only intersect at 1 point, I believe. Or if there are multiple points, you can discard them as well. But that gives you your altitude. And so that's why, watches that do this sort of thing are taking readings from multiple. Anyway, we're getting way off.
But it's fun, though. GPS is fascinating, and it's very real-world technology that, we all use day to day, and there's just a lot of cool math in there.
Oh yeah. I do like that math. Now, someone says, why is the FCC in charge? Because it's an American company. And they will coordinate with everyone else. I'm sure there's an international organization that coordinates satellites. They all work rather friendly together. Yes. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this. You've heard about microsatellites, just little things. They're only about this big, I think. They get launched off.
I have not.
Launch 50 or 60 at a time, yeah. I forget the exact term, but I read about it. Often someone will send up a whole bunch of them, and they all get launched and then distributed out over a wide area. They can do various things, just like photography and crop monitoring and stuff like that. I don't know much more about it. I forget the term they were using for these tiny little satellites, but they were interesting.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I just jumped over to just to compare. Like, we can look at the SpaceX. They were recently talking about that as well. They were hoping to have latency as low as 200 or 25 milliseconds, but they're not launching until 2019. Looks like.
Now that is interesting. Oh yeah, I can see this. I can see the further reading.
Yeah, they're the planned constellation of 4,425 broadband satellites will launch.
What?
I know, right? That is a crazy huge number of satellites.
In 83 planes.
Yeah.
Ranging from 1,100 to 1,300.
So they're really, it sounds like they're going big. They proposed maybe an additional 7,500, even closer to the ground, and to boost capacity, reduce latency. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. They say they'll operate as a mesh network and allocate broadband resources in real time, placing capacity where it is most needed and directing energy away from areas where it might cause interference.
So what is also interesting here, they mentioned there are an estimated 1,459 operating satellites around the Earth at the end of 2016. So this is 3 to nearly 4 times as many.
Right, just doing this, that would dramatically increase the number of these satellites. That's crazy.
By 4.
Yeah.
It'll quadruple the number of satellites up there. Anyway.
Boy, I wonder, I'm curious what the ground installation for these systems would look like. How big of a satellite dish do you need? What kind of things? How portable could it be?
The receiver, yes. Yeah. How, well, you've seen satellite radios on cars and stuff like that.
That's true.
It's just a little scallopy type thing. It's not very complex at all.
Yeah, but how big do you need for bandwidth?
Yes. This is much less... this radio is much less...
yeah, exactly. Right. And it's unidirectional, right? So you don't care about the upload. You don't care about the latency in that direction at all. So that makes it easier.
And I wonder if you need, I've heard about two-way satellite links for broadband, but I don't know how, they haven't said how this is going to work. And I'm sure that's not accidental.
Yeah. Well, it's at least neat. I'm glad that we're pursuing some of these things. We'll see if they're good ideas, good designs, all of that. But more internet access, I think, is almost always a good thing. And there are a lot of underserved areas in this country and in the world at large that could really do with better connectivity.
Yep.
What would it take for you think, to switch?
Cheaper than my...
Yeah, it comes down to money, doesn't it?
Yeah, it would have to be cheaper because...
but is there like a minimum threshold for bandwidth or latency that, like, where would you draw the line? Let's assume it's cheaper, but like, what quality of service do you need to get by with?
Let me just see here. What am I getting ping times here? I'm getting sub 20 millisecond ping times to one of my boxes out there. And let's see here, www.google.ca, and I'm getting 16 average ping times, 12 to 16 to Google. So, yeah, if it was a lot cheaper and it was like 30 millisecond times, now that's 30 millisecond average,
yes,
mind you.
Right. Okay. So there's like, if it's as advertised, it might be within spec for you.
But I downloaded a lot of stuff at the end of at the beginning of the month.
Yeah, right. That comes back there. It's true. Yeah. And I know that's a big pain for a lot of satellite customers, where they have to, be careful to schedule things so they only do their like downloads or updates on off hours when it's cheaper or things like that. So it'll be interesting to see if this is in that same vein or if it's an entirely new class of ISP in some ways.
It'll be interesting.
Exactly. Alrighty then. Well, if you're getting really excited about how you might have internet just about everywhere that you go, I think a natural pairing of that is our friends over at DigitalOcean.com. Head on over to DigitalOcean.com. There you'll find cloud computing. It's designed for developers. It's designed for businesses. It's designed for people who just want to get things done. DigitalOcean makes it super easy to get started because prices start at just $5 a month. If you use our promo code SNAPOcean, that gets you a $10 discount. Did I mention they have both monthly and hourly pricing? Yeah. That makes it even better. So when you've got $10 in the bank, 3 cents an hour, boy, that's nothing. And what you get for that, 2 gigs of memory, 2-core processor, and that's on real good KVM virtualization, 40 gigs of SSD disk. And DigitalOcean was one of the first big companies to jump on the SSD bandwagon. They've been SSD first pretty much their entire existence. They get how it works. They have fast, reliable storage. You get 3 terabytes of transfer, and that's like 40 gigabit E right to the hypervisors. It's amazing bandwidth. Maybe you're on one of these satellite connections that we've been talking about. DigitalOcean makes a great pairing with that, because if you're a little bit technically savvy, and I think that you are because you're watching the TechSNAP program, boom, DigitalOcean is a perfect proxy. Boom, I need a big download, something like YouTube DL or similar. You just do that on DigitalOcean. They have awesome transit. You'll get a great download speed, and then you can sync it from there at your leisure. You don't have to worry about any of these intermittent connections or latency problems. You can use whatever tools you want to sync from the DigitalOcean droplet down. They make a great solution for backups, blogs, photo sharing, as we just talked about in the Linux Unplugged last week. There's just so many options that you have available with DigitalOcean, and they keep adding more. Things like monitoring, load balancing, object storage, and attachable block storage. They've had that one for a while now, but when you do backups or you want to run something like FreeBSD with ZFS, totally supported on DigitalOcean, you can just add in more block storage. It mounts right to your droplet, shows up there. It's super easy to get started. They have a great API. All of these things are in the API. They've got simple to use apps, and they have an amazing community. That's maybe the best thing about DigitalOcean. You use our promo code SNAPOcean. That gets you started. Then you can go read some of their community guides. I mean, you can read them if you don't, because they're all public. But when you read these guides, you'll be like, wow, it's so easy to get started. I could have my own blog or my own syncing server or my own GitLab or whatever you need. In like 55 seconds, you'll spin up a new one. You'll find great tutorials with real editors who edited them, paid users for their contributions, great guides. and you'll just be so productive. So go get started. Go to DigitalOcean.com. Use our promo code SNAPOcean to let them know you appreciate them sponsoring the TechSNAP program. And go have some fun. And then right back to your TechSNAP program and tell us what cool projects you did over on DigitalOcean. And thank you to the DigitalOcean Project for sponsoring. Okay, Mr. Dan. Well, that was fascinating. I'm already excited about the future of satellite internet and how when I'll just carry my little portable satellite with me. I'm in the woods. I'm camping for 6 days. I just set my satellite up. I've already got my laptop. I've got my solar charger. It's all perfect. Yep. So what else do you have for us today?
Well, when you're doing all this, make sure you don't visit the dark web.
Well, that's what I was doing.
Yes.
That's why I'm in the woods hiding from the authorities. Okay.
The dark web is often referred to as the places you go to buy illegal stuff. And there's a lot of illegal stuff you can buy on the web, but it's not at Amazon, and it's not at Walmart, and it's not on eBay. It's generally in websites that have very rough reputations. And in the UK, they were recently distributing leaflets in London. And it said, listen, watch out for this kind of stuff. If you see any kind of this stuff, it's kind of suspicious, so let us know. And one of the things that said in the leaflet, police tell citizens to be on the lookout for anyone using the dark web. Now, on its own, using the dark web, there's nothing necessarily suspicious about that. I do know people that use the dark web on a regular basis for perfectly legitimate reasons, mostly related to their work, which is security-related things. Because you find a lot of security stuff on the dark web, such as credit card numbers, names and addresses, stuff like that.
Well, I think it also... Oh, sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
I think it also ties right back into how, how we talk about that using the dark web isn't... Yes, if you are doing nefarious things, you need additional privacy or you want additional privacy. But like you're talking about, like there may be because of research or because of your very public persona that you may, you may be targeted, you need a platform where you can protect some of your identity, that you could have a blog, even, talking about good things. It's just a simple tool like that.
And often you can only get to the dark web through a .onion domain. Mm-hmm. And in the past, it has been claimed that people using Tor, the Onion router network, that's very suspicious, and we should look into these people. But again, no, using a Tor router or a Tor browser, there's nothing suspicious about that in and of itself. It's like saying people taking photographs of sensitive areas are suspicious by nature. I mean, there's always, oh no, you can't take pictures of this. Well, it's not a high security website. It's a public building. And
and it's really about, we have to think about it as a shift of onus, I think, in that same way where like, well, if you have a secure building in the public view, people can take pictures of you. You have to design your building and your security measures with that in mind. In the same way, we have to design like, encryption will be used. Like we talked about in the last episode, the dark web will be used. We just have to accept that and move on and prioritize accordingly.
It's open source software is all in the open.
Yeah.
That security is all in the open.
That's its power. Yeah.
It's not a bad thing that people can see the innards of it. It's often how bugs are found and fixed.
Mm-hmm.
So casting aspersions upon people who may be doing something perfectly innocent. Anyway, once we get further down into this, we'll see the context in which this occurred. So when I first read this, I said, oh, this is crap. But context is everything. So context, London is on high alert. After a series of terrorist attacks in the capital, a man from Cardiff is now believed to be responsible for another incident on a group of worshippers near a mosque in London. It is not surprising that after a horrible incident politicians and lobbyists push for more and more intrusion upon private lives. There are existing tools to deal with this stuff. You don't need more intrusion. So police in the capital have reportedly been handing out leaflets listing what authorities deem as suspicious activity in the hope that vigilant community members can now provide helpful information to law enforcement. Perhaps in a sign of how online communities play an increased role in radicalization, the leaflet specifically points to the use of the dark web as a potential link to terrorism. Potential, not probable, not likely, but potential. Keep things in perspective. So here's the list of suspicious activity, which could include someone who appears to be carrying out surveillance. Fair enough. Taking photos of security arrangements, for example. Maybe. Has firearms or other weapons, or has shown an interest in getting them. Now, firearms in the UK are very different to many other countries. So, yeah. Is visiting the dark web or ordering unusual items online.
Yeah, what's unusual here?
I order unusual items online. I order 10 hard drives at a time sometimes. And to the normal person, that is very unusual. What is this guy doing? I'm building a storage server. It's not unusual at all.
What do you need this rack and the cage for, and all these weird cables and controls?
No pictures, please. No pictures.
Too late. It's been live streamed.
Has bought or hired a vehicle in suspicious circumstances.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know. Has bought or stored large amounts of chemicals, fertilizers, or gas cylinders for no obvious reasons, or is researching acquiring these items. Now that is rather reasonable, unless you're a farmer. But farmers are usually pretty well known and able to do these things.
Hey, me and my large cylinder of gas, we just like to snuggle on the couch while we're unwinding, watching TV.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that.
And there are very real restrictions in buying fertilizer.
Yeah, totally.
Very real. So, next. Has undergone an extreme and unexplained change in their behavior. Worst case, it's a mental issue. Best case, they get fired from their job. Is carrying out suspicious transactions on their bank account. Why does this guy, every February, March, and April, his credit card bills go through the roof, and he pays them off in full all the time. But the rest of the year, it's nothing. Why is that? Well, he runs a conference in Ottawa called BSD Can. In fact, he runs 2 conferences called BSD Can and PG Con. Sorry, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that goes to highlight the fact that anything looks suspicious when you don't understand the motivations or don't have the full context.
Context. Here's an idea. Here's an example of context. I've told this story once or twice before. A grandmother was helping her daughter put away the dishes while the grandchild was hanging out in the backyard. And she didn't always put away the dishes, so she had to ask where various things went. And they got around to these little plastic cups. Where do these go? Oh, down there with the pots and pans.
Why?
So the kids can get their own drinks without asking the parents.
See, that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
In context, it makes sense. And that is why you document very unusual or hard to follow aspects of your code. The very obvious things you still have to document, but the extremely obvious, put some good comments in there and say, this is being done because of that. So back to this for suspicious transactions. Yeah. So holds passports or other documents in different names for no obvious reason. Well, I hold multiple passports, but they're all in the same name. I do have one document where one of my names is misspelled, but it's not worth changing. Wow.
Oh boy.
Travels for long periods of time, but vague about where they're going. maybe they just don't like talking about it.
Yeah,
But
this describes like any private person that you might know who just doesn't, he was offended that you're inquiring about their personal business.
yep, they get reported.
So anyway, I think we have to stop the TechSNAP program because I need to go report Dan now. So just, sorry guys. But we'll be looking for a new host shortly after he's taken care of by the authorities.
Yep. So I understand what they're trying to do, but there's such a thing as way huge information overload. If you go to this article and you click through to the tweet, it'll put the tweet in context where the man from Cardiff said various things and stuff like that. But even then, by itself, doesn't necessarily mean anything. And yes, it's a terrible thing that's happened. But anyway, going on from this, I think I've said about enough.
Fair enough.
If you see suspicious things, say something. And suspicious is very subjective.
Yes, it is. It makes things difficult like that, right? Like there's just so much that goes on. People are so strange, and we live in interesting times, in very multicultural times, in times where we've lost a lot of the provisions about what is acceptable social behavior or other things. I think mostly for the better, by and large, but it can make it very hard for these kinds of judgments. And then when you start putting everyone in this frame of mind where we're all very paranoid about one another. I mean, obviously we should be concerned because we should try to prevent legitimate terrorism, crime, etc. But it does ask the question, like, where is this balance, and how do we view our neighbors, and how should we do that, and what's our default position?
Yep.
All right. Well, on to something maybe a little bit better. That's, our next sponsor this evening, and that's our friends over at ixsystems.com. Go to ixsystems.com/TechSNAP, and there you'll find the hardware service retailer that you've really been waiting for. IX Systems, you'd be like, okay, what does IX Systems do? It's a little hard to describe because they do so much. If you need a new storage solution, boom, IX Systems. You need a brand new server, boom, IX Systems. You need consultation because you're building a new data center and you just don't quite know what to do, IX Systems. They have awesome partnerships with pretty much everyone in the field, and especially the people at Intel. They work closely to make sure that their hardware is powered by incredible Intel processors, that they've been fitted with the latest and greatest technology, and they really do a great job of staying abreast of these things. They work with the OpenCFS project. They work with hardware manufacturers to make sure that they can build you whole systems that have been tested, integrated, designed to scale and to work in production the first time. They go to great lengths, white glove service, to make sure that anything you buy from them, it's been battle tested, burned in, and once it's plugged in, racked up, ready to go, it's just going to work for years. And that's something that you can't find really at almost any other provider, right? Most places you go to the web, you're like, okay, well, I want this thing. Yep, okay, you get a couple options maybe if you're lucky, or you have too many options that have no guidance. You don't know what you want. You don't know what you need. Are these options even compatible? Are you going to ship me something that works? And what? Are they going to ship it to you and then you have to put it together and then ship it to your data center and they're going to... No, IX Systems takes care of all of that. They've worked with some incredible names in industry, people like Sony, Disney, Yelp, Evernote, NASA, the University of California, Berkeley, big names doing serious research, serious business, serious projects. IX Systems understands that. Their sales engineers, they're looking forward to your call. It's really different than working with one of the big box vendors, because you're not a number. You're not just an account ID. You don't have to call and threaten up just to get some service or get your warranty honored. No, IX Systems understands that your solution needs to be custom, that you deserve time, that you need the best service available, and that's what they provide. Starting, I mean, right there at the low end with the FreeNAS Mini. If you need a reliable backup solution, that's just the first step. I think that's pretty much what anyone in the industry would say is that the FreeNAS Mini, go do it. It's worth the expense. You can trust it. You can rely on it. It's ready for business. It's ready for your home office. It's ready for your grandparents. It's pretty much ready for anyone that you can set it up with. It just works the first time. You move on up from there. Maybe you need more storage than that. You've got the TrueNAS that's ready to be racked up in your data center. They work with OpenZFS project to make sure that they have enterprise-ready file system that's got data integrity first and foremost. It's ready to mount for, you can do iSCSI, you can do NFS. Pretty much IX systems, they've been in the game so long, they know all of the software that you're going to use. They know how to run it. They know how to set up for it. They know how to integrate with it. That's what makes it so simple. So go to ixsystems.com/TechSNAP. There you'll find their definitive guide for buying hardware for open source software. It's a great guide you can give to anyone who's looking to buy some new hardware, whether that be you, your boss, someone at work, or just a friend. Go that. That'll let them know that you appreciate them sponsoring the TechSNAP program. I know we sure do. And go get the best server that you'll probably ever buy at ixsystems.com. Alrighty then, back to the TechSNAP program. What do you have for us now?
Well, the next thing is slightly more lighthearted.
Okay, good.
And
I was getting a little depressed.
Yeah, and I thought it was going to go down this one interesting path, but it didn't quite get there, and I was disappointed. But sorry to disappoint you. This is going to be fun.
Excellent.
Krebs on security. Got robocall? Don't get mad, get busy. Now, if you've got a cell phone, chances are you get a call, you answer it, and there's nobody there. What the hell? My theory is that they're calling to find out if it's a live number and then adding your number to a queue to later be called. So as a result, I rarely answer numbers that I don't recognize. And it used to be good for years, but only over the past year and a half, maybe year, I'm getting 2 or 3 phone calls a day from numbers I don't recognize, and I answer them and there's nobody there. And if I ignore them, they don't leave a voicemail, or the voicemail is total silence until it clicks off.
And a lot of times it might be from things that look like it's your local extension.
Yes, or a local number.
Yeah.
But it's all spoofed. The numbers are all spoofed. They're not the real numbers. And as someone in this article says, if someone's willing to spoof their number, they're certainly not out to treat you fairly.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So Krebs starts by saying, several times a week, my cell phone receives the I always say telephonic, but yeah,
telephony, I believe, but
telephony is the word I wanted. The telephonic equivalent of spam, a robocall. On each occasion, the call seems to come from a local number, but when I answer, there is that telltale pause followed by an automated voice pitching some product or service. This is illegal. Automated phone calls with no voice on there are only very certain things that can do that, and almost all of them you have to opt into, unless you're a politician, in which case they can do it all they want. Go figure. I would like them not to be able to do it as well. So when I heard from a reader who chose to hang on the line and see where one of the robocalls led, I decided to dig deeper. This is the story of that investigation. Hopefully it will inspire readers to do their own digging and to help bury this annoying and intrusive practice.
Can I just say right now that I love this weird, creepy graphic of the robot using the cell phone that he's got here. It's perfect.
Yeah. So this reader, Cedric, not his real name, he decided to tell them a white lie. He lied. It's not a white lie. He lied to the automated voice system that said, yes, I definitely was interested in credit repair facilities. I lied about my name and played like I needed credit repair to buy a home. I eventually wound up speaking with a representative at creditfix.com. That number, blah, 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 was not in service when Cedric tried to call it back, suggesting it had been spoofed to make it look like it was coming from his local area. Going down, CreditFix is hosted on a server at this address, according to records maintained by Farsight Security, a company which tracks internet addresses that correspond to domain names. That server hosts or recently hosted dozens of other websites. the full list is here.
That's interesting, kind of by itself. There, that like Farsight Security, they're just like maintaining a big back historical index of reverse DNS, basically.
And a lot of them on that in that list, credit is mentioned 99 times.
Wow.
I didn't list how many pages how many websites there were, but 99 is a lot.
Yep.
Well, let's see how many .com. There's 175 .com.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a sizable portion of that.
And they're all .com addresses. Yes, they are all .com addresses. So more than half of these are related to
credit or something like that. Yeah.
Now, there may be other languages.
Good
but anyway,
point.
So back to this. Most of these domains appear tied to various credit repair services owned or run by a guy named Michael LaSala and registered to a mail drop in Las Vegas. Looking closer at who owns the address, we find it is registered to System Admin LCC, a Florida, don't trust Florida, company that lists LaSala as a manager, according to a lookup at the Florida Secretary of State's office. So basically, the domains are owned or run by this guy, and the IP address is run by this guy. And I'm going to see. Pardon me. Emails to the contact address at creditfix.com elicit a response from Sean in his compliance department. Sean told Krebs that mine was the second complaint this company received about robocalls. Sean said he was convinced that his employer was scammed by a lead generation company that is using robocalls to quickly and illegally gin up referrals, which generate commissions for the lead generation firm. So it's not us, it's them. And CreditFix said the robocall leads it received appear to have been referred to by Little Brook Media, a marketing firm in New York City. Little Brook Media did not respond to multiple requests for comment. Then it goes into the bit about robocalls are permitted for political candidates, but beyond that, if the recording is from a sales message and you haven't given your written permission to get calls from the company, on the other end, the call is illegal. According to the FTC, companies are using auto dollars to send out thousands of calls every minute for an incredibly low cost. The companies that use this technology don't bother to screen for numbers on the National Do Not Call Registry. I am on it. You should get on it. There's a link here. The FTC notes an advisory on its website. If the company doesn't care about obeying the law, you can be sure that they're trying to scam you. So if your number is on the Do Not Call list, they are required not to call you. And if they do anyway, it's a scam. Now, another interesting thing here. If the robocaller decides to spoof another phone number, making it appear that they're calling from a different line to hide their identity, this is a proposal. Phone providers would be able to block them if they use a number that clearly didn't exist because it hasn't been assigned or that an existing subscriber has asked not to have it spoofed. This is a proposal. The FCC recently approved new rules that would let phone companies block robocallers from using numbers they weren't supposed to be using. Why don't they just block robocallers?
Right. Why does it take a proposal and FCC approval for that to happen? You'd think that would almost fall under good network management type practices.
Perhaps it is illegal for them to cut off service.
Right. So if you can spoof it, then they can't interfere with that as long as I could see something there.
It may be, but the phone lines are a very special service, and it may be easier to cut off other sort of services than it is the phone.
Yeah, no,
it's a bit like cutting off your heat in the middle of winter. Yeah.
No, that's a very good point. And it makes sense that there would be safeguards, safeguards around that, especially given its historical place, etc. So I suppose that makes sense. But you're right. It's frustrating that you're like, well, why is it taking so long to let people, just block the people where you're obviously like, well, this isn't your number. You're trying to say that this is your DID. It's not your, It's not your number. Like, no, It's not happening.
Now, did we talk recently about the guy that was calling the robocallers?
Yeah, a little bit.
He was calling them so much that they couldn't receive other incoming calls. He was basically flooding their incoming calls with his fake calls so that they couldn't get out to any scammers, out to any potential scam victims.
Right. The other ones I've seen are people who make like spam honeypots in the same, where it's like it sounds like it's a person, or it's like a very dumb AI that interacts like a person.
Yep.
Those are just kind of fun.
I'm sad to say that this article didn't lead to exposing someone and they went to jail or anything like that. It just sort of died there. But yeah, it is interesting. I wouldn't be surprised to see another post from Krebs if he starts looking into this a little bit closer. The FTC received nearly 3.5 million robocall complaints in 2016, an increase of 60% from the previous year. And the FCC estimates that there are more than 2.4 billion robocalls made every month, or roughly 7 calls per person per month. That's one every 3 days, is it? No, one every 4 days.
That's still more than I would like.
Yes.
By far. Huh. So
I think I've received 2 today.
Mm-hmm. I see they talk here about a little bit about, like, for example, AT&T offers wireless customers a Call Protect app, which screens incoming calls and flags those that are likely spam.
Yeah, well.
But I think those also exist, like, Google will do that to some extent. So there's a lot of those already.
I know I've not answered calls because I've not recognized them, and it's turned out to be someone, pardon me, a call I was expecting.
Yeah,
but I just called them back. That's
the worst part is that, I mean, I had a similar thing, right, where you're like, my general policy is if I don't know you the number, I won't answer, and leave a voicemail and I'll call you back if it's legitimate. But you're right, there's tons of times where that then backfires, and having this default no trust, it's really unfortunate. There's a lot of people in my life who now screen their calls or other things. It's made something that, much like, I guess, the same security trend on the internet, we've gone from a safe world where you could kind of trust things, and it's just not like that anymore.
No. It's not good. I wish it was a lot easier.
Anything else you want to add about this before you get interrupted by a robocall?
No, thank you.
Okay, well then we move on to our final sponsor this evening, and that's our friends over at Ting. They don't robocall you, no, my friends, they're the exact opposite. They're mobile. That makes sense. Go to techsnap.ting.com, like just right now, because you're sick of robocalls. I mean, they can't necessarily protect you from that, no, but they can make it so that you have a much smaller phone bill. TechSNAP.ting.com. The average Ting bill is just $23 per phone per month. It's a smarter way to do mobile. You can go over there and you'll start seeing how much you'll save. You just click on their rates page. Come play with their fun little HTML form here. You'll see that lines start at $6 a month. And that comes with no early termination fees, no data caps, no overages, no special tethering data that you have to pay extra for. You get all the features you want, three-way calling, voicemail, etc. So it just works, right? It's just a phone that just works, and you can use it. They're not going to cut you off. They don't mysteriously throttle you. They don't downgrade your video quality. They don't assign you super cookies. No, they're just not interested in that because they're trying to provide you phone service. It's just so simple. You just pay for what you use on top of that. So $6 a line, and then, hey, whatever you pay, however many minutes you need, just a little bit of minutes, maybe just a little bit of text messages and a little bit of data, you're at $28 a month. And that's for some of everything. You probably don't need all of that. You're probably pretty Wi-Fi savvy. Anytime you're on Wi-Fi, You don't pay for that. That's why it makes so much sense. And maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you're one of those people who doesn't like to save money or just wants to waste money, and you just want a cell phone plan where you don't have to think about it. You pay a fixed rate. You just get so many minutes of these things and blah blah blah, and it's enough for the kids to use their phone. Whatever. I don't think that's you, because the big carriers, you can see, but with their marketing trends, they've just gone to a system where they just keep adding on new things. They don't have clear value. They don't know how to incentivize you to keep staying with their bloated plan. So they just, hey, unlimited minutes. Okay, fine. Just pay us $100 a month or $150 a month for some of these plans. That's crazy. You should just pay for what you use, and that's the way that Ting does it. When you go to techsnap.ting.com, you'll get a $25 service credit. That'll probably pay for like most of your first month, as you can see here, which is awesome. Or if not, you can bring your own device to Ting. They make it super easy. They've got an IMI checker. You just put in some digits, check to see if your phone's eligible. It most likely is, and then you jump on the Ting plan. They don't get in the way of your updates. They're not going to like, oh, you're running some, non-rooted thing or rooted firmware or blah, blah. No, they don't care. As long as you abide some reasonable rules and restrictions according to the service contract, etc., Ting is Honey Badger with all of that. And that's also what makes them great. But if you need a new phone, you can just go over to their shop. Yeah, that's right. They've got a shop. You can buy your SIM cards there. Or if you need a new phone, you can get the latest iPhone 7 or that Samsung Galaxy S8 that everyone's talking about with that smooth screen. Maybe that's not for you, though. You're not really interested in that high-end nonsense. Instead, you just want the Home Phone Connect 3. It's a CDMA. Boom. Data plan right there. Novatel MiFi 500. That is a super popular CDMA, refurbished. Great deal, $84. You just have a MiFi that you keep in the car with you all the time. It's $6 a month. When you use internet, boom, you pay for that. When you don't, you don't. It's so simple. They've also got a great line of these kind of bargain basement Android phones. Things like the Alcatel A392, which is from $63. They've got some ruggedized phones. So maybe you just want a phone that you throw it in the work truck, it sits in the glove box, or it goes out with you while you're hiking, etc. for safety, but you don't want to bring your nice phone. There's just so many options. And these are the kind of things that Ting really, really makes possible. So head on over to techsnap.ting.com. Let them know that you appreciate them sponsoring our program, and go get yourself a way better phone plan. And that brings us to the feedback segment this week. We're a little light on feedback, so we've got some feedback from our very own Mr. Dan. But first, we did have one comment. This is from Joe, and he says, black and white print tracking dots, document forgery and counterfeiting is not limited to cash, nor is the desire to track.
Yeah, he's brief, and I understand what he's saying.
Elaborate, please.
So, we were talking, this originally got started with yellow dots printed by color photocopiers allowed a whistleblower to be identified. I forget what the exact case was, but the reporter went to the NSA and said, can you confirm this document? And they said, sure. And they looked at the document, they saw the yellow dots, found out what printer it was printed on and at what time, and looked at the logs and saw that person was so-and-so, and they found their whistleblower. It may not have been the NSA. But
no, it was. Yeah.
So, and then it went on to, later on, someone pointed out that this tracking was originally added to color photocopiers to help them deter counterfeiting and photocopying of cash specifically.
Right.
But now people say, well, we want to track a lot of things, and it's not just this or that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, why they want to track this is beyond me, but it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I suppose it goes on with the general. It's so nice when you later want to go find things later to have additional metadata, and so yeah, I can see that desire, at least from the programmer side, or the where you're just like, well, now I know more about where this came from, and I have a way to and understand that and track it, but it does have serious privacy implications, obviously.
Quite.
So thank you, Joe, for that. And you guys can give us more feedback at techsnap.reddit.com or jupiterbroadcasting.com. techsnap.com/contact. There's a contact form there, or you can find us both on Twitter. Makes it real easy. So, since we're done with the mailbag this week, Dan, we thought maybe you could talk a little bit about your recent changes to your Let's Encrypt setup, which we've kind of been following on and off here for the past couple of weeks.
Because it's been taking forever to do. Let's Encrypt is an organization that's set up in order to provide free and easily obtainable SSL certificates. And as someone who has a lot of websites and a lot of SSL certificates, one of the most exciting things to do is to renew a certificate. Basically, you have to renew the certificate, you have to identify yourself, and you have to pay someone for money, and then they give you the cert, and then you have to install it. And I would say on a good day, it would take up at least 15 minutes, maybe half an hour, renewing a cert. And some websites, some web cert providers take ages. Some are free, like Start SSL, but I recommend that if you're using Start SSL, stop.
Yeah, and I mean, that doesn't underscore that, your different SSL providers may have entirely different processes or hoops for you to jump through, and you have different credentials that you need to keep track of. Yeah, it's been a pain.
Yeah. So Let's Encrypt lets you prove that you own a website lets you prove that you own a domain name in two ways. One, by putting a certain file on that website, or by adding a certain text value to your DNS. Either way, if you can do that, they say, yep, you own that domain, here's your cert, free of charge. And this cert is good for 90 days, and you're expected to renew it every 60 days. Why so short? Because you're supposed to automate it. Why automate it? So it gets done.
Oh my God, that's the best ever. I love it. Yeah, why automate it? So that it actually freaking happens.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Now, show my photograph from my notebook, please. Click on the photograph. Does it get too big? Does it overflow the screen? So, I had done some work on Saturday morning. I think that's the date of this tweet. No, it's not. That's today or yesterday. So, over the weekend, I finally got a full round of here, do this, do that, and I got a certificate, all completely automated. It wasn't deployed, but I got the certificate. And at that point, I said, I got to write this down. I got to write down what I've done. I got to have it in a picture because I work very well over pictures.
Yes.
So this top photo is a jail that runs acme.sh, which is an implementation of the Let's Encrypt Acme protocol. I run the Acme script that talks to Let's Encrypt, and that shoves what it gets into VARDB Acme certs. Then I created a special user called the collector, and all the collector does is grabs certificates from that directory and puts them in another directory. Why? Because there's data in that directory that I do not want to expose to the world, specifically keys. You only make the certs public. You never make the keys public. So I have a little user called the collector, and the collector has a little script, and all it does is look in that directory for certificates less than a day old, and then copies them over to there. So that's the first jail. Oh yes. Over on the left-hand side of the photograph, you'll see DNS01. When the acme.sh script talks to Let's Encrypt, it then goes down and talks to my hidden master and adds a text record. We'll get into that later. It adds a text record as part of the verification process. That text record gets added to the master. The master notifies all the public servers. All my public servers then pull down the new zone, and boom. Acme then says to Let's Encrypt, okay, you can go and validate it. Let's Encrypt validates it, and I get the cert. So, the middle jail. In the middle jail, there's a VARDB certs, which is the same VARDB certs from the first jail, but it's mounted read-only via a nullfs mount, which means it can read it, but there's no way. It is impossible to write to it. It is read-only. It is a read-only file system. So in that jail, I have a user called rsyncer, and that user can read that directory. Jump down to the next jail. The next jail is a website that has a public directory on it. In that jail, I have another user called rsyncer, and that user connects to the middle jail via public SSH key and does an rsync down. It is limited to only doing an rsync and only doing an rsync of that directory. It can do nothing else whatsoever.
Nice.
And that SSH connection has to come from a specific IP address, which has to resolve to a specific host name. That may be a SSH only key, but it's very limited as to what it can do. So most of this is working. The Let's Encrypt worked once, then I tore it down, put it aside, and put it in storage because I want to redo that whole jail from scratch because I did a lot of mucking around in there to get it working.
Getting things working, you want to have a clean redo.
Yep. The collector works, the rsync works, and the website will get populated when there are certificates in it. There are none at the moment. What then needs to happen is this ABC down there are all my jails and websites that need their certs. And once a day, they'll wake up, run a script, and fetch all of the certificates that they use from that jail, but only if they were newer or of a different size. Once it fetches one, then I have to code something up to put that certificate it just fetched in the right place and restart the right services. It might be a mail server, it might be a web server, might be Dovecot, I can't think of anything else that uses certs. Now, keep in mind that this whole solution is only for my public certificates. Any private certificates that are used only by mechanisms within my infrastructure, those are all my own private CA. The reason being, it's a lot harder. It's hard to spoof Let's Encrypt. But for you to spoof one of my certs, you've got to compromise my certificate authority. And if you're good enough to get in here and do that, well, I'm outgunned anyway. So I'm not really worried.
Have at it.
Yes, that's not an invitation. So I put this up on the web, and Peter Wem said, 3 jails? Only 3? Are you really trying? Or something like that. So one of the differences that the FreeBSD infrastructure does is I have my update of my DNS within my Acme jail. FreeBSD doesn't do that. They do it via a separate jail because they have all their DNS sec stuff in there. But why am I doing it in the same jail? Because it's straightforward to do so. And if we go to the next link, which is my blog post, it does the update of DNS via NS update. And that key is allowed only to create TXT records.
Oh, neat. That's awesome.
And if you scroll down to, where is it? Yeah. 4 black squares from the bottom, allowing the key to update the zone.
Yes, here we are.
Yeah, next one down. Update policy. It says grant the Let's Encrypt key a wildcard acmechallenge.star text. Now, that doesn't actually work. That's not what that's what I thought I could use.
You were hoping that's what would work.
I was hoping that would work that way, but it does not. It is slightly different, and I will make myself a note to update that page. That'll come out in another blog post later, but that's basically how it works. Now, there's still a lot more work to do. I reckon I have another 3 or 4 hours to get it working to the point of where the certs wind up on the website properly. And then probably another 4 or 5 hours of writing scripts to make sure the right things turn up in the right places. And I fear that I'll have to do a unique script per host. I don't think so. I think I can get away with a unique script per service.
Okay.
But we'll see.
So will this all be public, open source?
No. Well, I'll create blog posts and I'll show the scripts, but the scripts aren't very complicated. It's just different bits and pieces.
Tying things together.
The whole solution isn't very complex. It's just time consuming to figure out how you want to do it.
Right. And of course, with automation, like because it's going to be running, hopefully forever, you got to take that time to make sure that it runs correctly, well, and, work out all the edge cases.
And I go to crt.sh, please.
Done.
One of the things I need to do initially is figure out my list of certificates. So type in %freebsd.org just for the hell of it. This is all the certificates that it's found for freebsd.org. And you can see there's a lot of Let's Encrypt there.
Yeah, there are.
In fact, a whole lot of Let's Encrypt. And further down, you get Gandhi.
Boy, that's there's a lot going on here. Jenkins, MX, so many MX relays, all the FTP, some CVS webs.
Yep.
Perforce is on there. Come on.
There's a very useful certificate, very useful tool that someone pointed out to me today that may be very useful. All right. So that's the first thing I have to do is compile a list of certs that I use. And I may be using this to do that because acme.sh needs to know the certs I need to renew.
Right.
So every day it'll go through and say, how old is this one? How old is this one? How old is this one? Oh, I don't know whether to give it a list of certs or just on the initial. I think each initial cert will have to be done via hand. And then I have a list of certs sitting there. And the script will look to see what needs to be renewed now. I don't know if acme.sh will automatically renew or if you have to say renew this one because it's due to renew. But it's easy to get that information out. I can just look at a cert and say, if this is over 90 days old, I need to 60 days old, I need to renew
Right,
it.
I'm pretty sure there's already a Nagios monitor for that exact thing.
That's for monitoring it. I will monitor to make sure the certs that are out in the field aren't more than 65 days old. But the Acme script in-house will have to be driven so that when a cert gets to more than 60 days old, it renews it. And it's not looking out in the field, it's looking in that jail, just that directory of certs that it has locally. That's my thoughts as to how it's going to work. I haven't researched that side of it yet.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. How have you liked acme.sh? Has it been limiting or anything?
No, not limiting.
Have you looked at the source also? I have not.
Yes, I've looked a little bit at it, and what's been frustrating is figuring out what a particular value is, or knowing that a particular knob exists and that you can set it. Like I wanted to put all my certificates outside the tree somewhere over here and didn't know how to do that until I found an error message and said, oh, that has a path in it. I wonder how that path is generated. And I looked for the error message and tracked it back and found the setting I had to make. Now, I don't know if that's documentation doesn't exist or I'm just not reading it carefully enough or what. But
that's always my my qualification with shell tools is, yeah, I mean, with any dependency that you have, it's like, if push comes to shove, you might have to open it up and be able to debug it or change it or modify it. Or
I'm quite happy with it being a shell script. Okay. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it sounds like it's working well. I haven't tried it, that particular one, but I remember seeing it when it first came out and being like, yeah, okay, that's neat. I mean, super easy to install. You don't need 10 tons of dependencies. It's just a shell script.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, well, anything else you want to add?
Nope, that turned into a little deep dive. That was okay.
That was beautiful. I love it. Thank you very much for sharing, good sir. And that wraps up the feedback. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with the roundup. And that brings us to the final segment of today's show. That's right. It's time for the roundup. These stories weren't quite, top of show material, but actually they're still really good. So first up, the Windows 10 lock screen leaks clipboard contents. That doesn't sound very good. Let's find out more.
Now, I've never seen the Windows 10 lock screen. I'm not even sure I've used Windows 10. I think not, but basically, on Windows 10, there is a way to read clipboard contents. In other words, Control-C, copy stuff, right from the lock screen without any form of authentication. It could be a problem. This would be especially a problem in enterprise environments where any coworker could easily go through a few PCs at lunchtime and harvest potentially juicy information such as passwords without leaving any trace. Now, yeah, that could happen, but I think you might get spotted doing that. So the proof of concept goes as follows. Type Win plus L, which locks the workstation. Press Win plus Enter, which starts the narrator. Then do caps lock plus F1, which opens the narrator help. Then Control V. Posts what's on the clipboard right there and then. So I wonder if really the way around this is to disable copy paste from when the lock screen is locked.
Yeah.
But that may be harder to do than it sounds.
Right. I don't know what that looks like in terms of their framework. Do they have the right hooks in the right places for that granularity? What layer is copy paste implemented in the Windows window manager?
This issue affects all editions of Windows 10. And according to Mo, the person who found this issue, Microsoft does not consider this to be a security issue as it requires physical access. Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
Fair enough.
But it's not ideal. I suppose
it's an information leak.
Yeah, definitely. I imagine there are some enterprises out there who are less than thrilled that this works. Especially it's one of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, it doesn't 90% of people doesn't affect at all, but once you're targeted, this is the exact kind of thing that people can start to try to take advantage of. Or you can start targeting, IT staff, people who might have other people's passwords pasted or other important information available to them. So I suppose if you are one of those people, you should look into maybe a clipboard manager or other thing that, or if you are using secrets, store them in something that if it uses the clipboard, it will clear them after a certain amount of time, like KeePass or similar.
I wonder if you can disable narrator.
That's a good question too. Yeah, or can you disable some of those usability features so that you don't have this problem? I don't know. We'll have to look at that. I don't have a Windows machine handy to test with, unfortunately.
Neither do I.
Oh boy.
Can we spin up a DigitalOcean?
Yeah, hey, there we go.
We don't have a touchscreen then.
No, that's true.
Okay.
All right. Well, I guess we'll just move on with the roundup. Dan, what is the Elgin rectangle, and why couldn't people lock their cars in Carleton?
The Elgin rectangle. Carleton is a suburb of Melbourne. And Melbourne is a very nice city in Australia. It was a city in Australia that I liked the most.
Oh, nice.
Now, so scrolling down here, visitors to Carleton would spend chunks of time waiting for the beep, flash, or clunk to signify their chariot had been successfully protected. No luck. Was it dodgy batteries? The news agent was doing a nice business out of it, but no. Drive around the corner and the electronics would start working again. The enigma seemed to be focused on one small pocket, Elgin Street between Drummond Street and Lygon Street. I think that's pronounced correctly. So, what did it turn out to be? A malfunctioning doorbell.
Really?
Yeah, they sent someone around to investigate it. They sent someone around with a spectrum detector. And he visited the area and found a constant signal at 434 megahertz, which is the same frequency used by car remotes. He walked around with the analyzer, and it appeared to be the strongest reading coming from the doorway of the dentist. The culprit, it wasn't a frequency jammer or clandestine radio broadcast, but a doorbell. A fault with a transmitter used as part of a doorbell sensor at the Carlton Dental had knocked out key remotes across the whole street. Doesn't happen often, but it does happen.
Wow, that's wild.
What's interesting is it's a dental clinic that provided the original tip-off about the problem.
So they were the problem and the solution, it turns out.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I wonder if they knew and they just wanted to see if it's like a test for the for that spectrum analyzer guy. Will he find it? Because we really screwed up our doorbell here. It's probably breaking this.
That test thing reminds me. Go into Etsy cron tab, enter a line, don't hit enter. It'll never run.
I've seen that before. Yeah, you need that. Has to actually be properly terminated.
You need the new line.
That's right. I've actually seen comments in cron tab saying that, like, "Hey, leave this new line or else," or things like that. So that's funny. Is that just a peculiarity in the way that Damon parses?
It's in the definition.
I see. So it's like it's to spec.
A cron tab line is defined as a string of characters ended with a new line.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, that makes sense. So use a decent editor that will tell you those things, so you can actually make sure that that's what's happening. Okay. And speaking of decent things, maybe it's time that you take a new approach to how you do VPN. Maybe not, but you could try going beyond.
So I tried to highlight this article with my fancy highlighting JavaScript. It won't work. It won't work. I cannot highlight this text, and I don't know why. I imagine it's being interfered with by some other, like if you try to highlight something, you will get like a G+, a Twitter, and a Facebook.
Oh yeah, here I'll just show that off.
Thing pop up. That's what you get pop up. I also get my annotation box pop up, and I think they're conflicting with each other, and so I can't run mine, but I can run theirs. But anyway, so let me find the bit that I wanted to mention because it is not highlighted. So this is basically Beyond Corp is a security approach used by Google that allows employees to work from anywhere quickly and easily. In other words, they're not using a VPN. You're just straight in to what you need. You've got your tools right there. So how do they do that? I don't know. Basically.
Ask them. Why are you asking me? I'm just the podcaster.
Don't ask me. Beyond Corp makes applications easily accessible from anywhere. It also improves security in other ways. Over the course of the migration, we've discovered services that we thought were long dead because this change required taking a detailed look at our traffic, our dependencies, and our employee usage patterns. It also allowed us to scale globally while reducing our attack surface and increased our ability to provide access when appropriate. Now, there's a whole bunch of things here that you have to do, but there are 4 links at the bottom of the page that goes through, and basically it's a new approach to how you do it, how they did it, and it basically took years, not exaggerating, years to move from the old approach to the new approach. But basically, they have better security because of it. And I don't know how applicable that is to other organizations.
I mean, it seems like they've really had to internalize it and made it a part of everything, right? Like it's to migrate to it, they've had to do things like expose services and keep track of these and build profiles about how services are used and monitor those things. But it does seem like a much better approach if you can do it than the like black or white. All right, well, we give you VPN access. You're on the VPN, and we trust the VPN, which I think is how a lot of places end up running. And
being on VPNs is sort of okay, but it also means you can't be VPN'd into another place. Now, some people do dual VPNs, but it is a security risk, and I don't do it when I'm connected. I don't do it when I'm connected to anywhere. I'm only ever on one VPN at a time.
Right. And it adds a whole other layer of management and infrastructure and understanding. And if you just want your employee to be able to go access a resource at a public thing with their credentials, like, that's a lot easier, and they don't have to understand that they have to have this connection and it's separate credentials or whatever.
Yep.
So it's interesting. It's neat that they've published these things publicly, that you can go check it out. You're right.
Yep.
Like, you probably need to be Google scale or similar to be able to do this kind of radical change. But maybe now that they've kind of they've explored it a little more, they're offering a couple primitives or examples. Maybe we'll see some of this designed into future products.
I think this would be really good.
Yeah, definitely. It seems a lot better than the things we have now. Okay, on to the next roundup item. Australia is advocating weakening strong crypto at the upcoming Five Eyes meeting. Before we go on, what Five Eyes? What are we talking about here, Dan?
Okay, Five Eyes is a group. In this post, they call it a group of English-speaking nations that routinely share intelligence. But in short, it all started off with a US-UK, I believe, treaty, and then Australia, Canada, New Zealand all jumped on as well. I would say mainly, I'm going to guess that Canada jumped in on it because Canada-US have a very good relation. And UK, Australia, New Zealand jumped in as well because they have a good relationship with the UK. And if you look at a globe, that pretty much covers all your hemispheres. It's Southern Hemisphere, Northern Hemisphere, East and West. I would say that they do a lot of sharing of information. I would say that each country is sort of spying on the other one's neighbors, because you can't spy on your own, but you can spy on foreign people. I know that some of the listening stations in New Zealand were very sensitive, and they were known to be part of this. There are various organizations that are mentioned. There's a link here to the Wikipedia article. Let me find it because I wanted to mention something about the groups in there. If you scroll down, there is under Canada, there's the Canadian Forces Intelligence Command. Now, I'm not sure if I knew people that work there or not, but I'm sure that is now composed of the group that my father used to work for. Now, CSC, Canadian Security Establishment, I definitely know people that work there. They have an office not far away from where I used to live, and I used to bus by there all the time. Used to drive by on the way to work at one time. And CSIS, everyone knows where CSIS is. It's right there on Blair Road in the east end of Ottawa. Everyone knows where that is. It's a beautiful building. New Zealand, GCSB, GCSB, yeah, that's the one. I always have, if I'm not reading it, I have trouble looking it up. But basically, it's human intelligence, which is the software actually talking to people, and it's electronic intelligence, which is the intercepts. SIGINT is what it's called. But yeah, all of these groups are cooperating, and it's a huge volume of data. Anyway, back to what they're advocating. Top Australian government officials said Sunday that they will push for thwarting the encryption of terrorist messaging during an upcoming meeting next week of the so-called Five Eyes group of English-speaking nations that routinely share intelligence. There's a problem with that. Thwarting the encryption of terrorist messaging. No, that's not what you're asking for. You're asking for backdoors and encryption for everyone, not just terrorists.
Right. Does this only affect me if I tag my post with hashtag terrorist on it?
Yes.
Or
Yes. Within a number of years, effectively, 100% of communications are going to use encryption, they told an Australian newspaper. The problem is going to degrade, if not destroy, our capacity to gather and act upon intelligence unless it's addressed. No. Encryption has existed for a very long time. Encryption is not new. You had to deal with encryption all through World War I, World War II, and before. Encryption is not new. Don't give us that crap.
Yeah, it's a little bit like complaining that, oh, well, hey, suddenly we invented all these additional means of communicating and we could just silently eavesdrop on them. Oh, but now you figured out how to stop that and we're back to where we were before. And it's like, well, tough.
And they're saying a key escrow. No, the key escrow is not going to work because someone's going to break into the key escrow and all of our encryption, including the government encryption, is going to be open. And are you suggesting that, say, the government and the public should use two different sets of encryption? Well, that's not going to work because the people that are mandated to use your government-supplied encryption are going to use it. And the people that don't want to use it are just going to use publicly available open source software anyway. And that software is out there and you're never going to pull it back. So this is absolutely ridiculous to even suggest using weaker encryption.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All it's going to do is cause more crime against innocent people.
And turn, yeah, right, exactly. And turn innocent people into criminals as well.
Yeah.
Come on, Australia. Come on. It's frustrating how, I mean, I understand their perspectives from it, but it's just the technical, I mean, not a numeracy, but whatever the technical equivalent is, just like ignoring the technical facts here is very frustrating.
I wonder how Canberra drew the short straw and had to make this suggestion.
Yeah, that's a good question. We need someone to say it, and I'm not going to say it because I'll look like a fool, but someone has to say it.
Someone has to say it.
All right. Well, I suppose that... Oh, go on.
At the risk of sounding terrible, Australia is not exactly a welcoming country to immigrants.
Yeah, they've had a lot of issues around that, around policies on encryption and similar things.
What is the country in... What is the island that they used to be Guano? Australian immigration island. There it is. Nauru.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's absolutely atrocious what is going on there. Anyway. Sorry, on to a brighter topic.
Yes, on to the final roundup item this evening. 25 microchips that shook the world. This is just a list of some of the most innovative, intriguing, and inspiring integrated circuits.
Yep. Now, most of these I've never heard of, but some of them I have. Read about the NE555 timer, which was basically the first thing that could time something. And once you can time something, you can do a whole lot of other stuff. And it's just amazing. There's a speech synthesizer down here. There is the 6502, which I have heard of. The 6502 is really cool. Let me go through here. A UART. They created a UART, which is absolutely vital for asynchronous. What is it? I forget what it stood for, but I remember UART. The Kodak image sensor. That all became Deep Blue chess chip. The Intel 8088 in 1979. I had an 8088 at one time. An MP3 decoder. Wow. A 4 kilobyte DRAM. 4K DRAM. That's huge. The Zilog Z80 microprocessor. That was huge. I remember reading about that when it first came out. And then the Sun Spark processor. What else is down here? The ADSL chipset in 94. That's a big deal. The Motorola 6800. You must have heard of that.
Yep.
The AT chipset. The IBM AT. I think that's what they're talking about. And then the last one on the list, believe it or not, is from 1989, Toshiba NAND flash memory. Flash memory is huge. There's so much that's used for now. But have a read through here, and the little bits of history that are in there as to how things got started and stuff like that is very interesting. I got hooked by the very first one about the NE555 circuit. They talk in here about the number of transistors, didn't they? Find transistors, yes. His final design had 23 transistors, 16 resistors, and 2 diodes. He spent nearly a year making breadboard prototypes. It was a sensation. Many billions have been sold. Engineers still use the 555 to create useful electronic modules, as well as useful things like Knight Rider style lights for car grills.
Isn't that crazy? And like these days, like something like that, you know, you might design or study or implement in like an undergraduate course. But at the time, that was a breakthrough.
Yep.
And it's not that long ago, even, is part of the crazy
71.
Part. Yeah, right? 71. And now we're
the guy is still working.
That's amazing.
Where is he? It gave his age. He's at 75 and he's still designing chips. He's 75 years old. Yep.
Hans Kamensend.
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. This article's from 2009.
So he may not still be designing chips.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Regardless, that's very impressive. And this is a fascinating article. And there's a lot, you know, either it'll take you back or, hey, it might learn you something new about a chip that you never heard about, how it changed the world maybe before you were born.
Yep.
Awesome.
I agree.
Well, I guess that rounds out today's TechSNAP. Anything you want to leave the audience with, good sir?
No, not at all.
Awesome. Well, then this has been episode 326 of the TechSNAP program. If you'd like to see more of us, go on over to jupiterbroadcasting.com/archive or /contact or /calendar or whichever link. You'll find the live stream there too. The live stream, you can join the IRC room, check out all the other great shows on the network. There's also a bunch of Reddit subreddit pages, so like techsnap.reddit.com. There's also like linuxunplugged.reddit.com. Anyway, you can go find those or find both of us on Twitter. I'm at Wes Payne and he is at TechSNAP_Dan. It's just so easy. Thank you very much for joining us here. You can join us live, join the IRC room. It's a ton of fun, or just hey, keep watching, and we'll see you next week.